But for those transfers, you should have taken one person to dialysis.
I
Right.
know. One 500-pound person. Thank you too, man. I don't know how you did 30 years.
Yeah,
What?
that's incredible.
That's unbelievable.
Yes.
Well, look
I've
at
had
him.
my promise you.
He's
Yeah,
only
it's more
48.
on him. Yeah,
Well,
Who said this job was stressful?
yeah.
yeah.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Getting 10-8. And boy, do I have one for y'all today. Look, we have got Scott St. Germain, who has been a regular on this show. So we all know Scott. And down below me, we have Vic Stewart, who's been on several times as well. But we've got a new face in the chat. And if you look up there, I'd like to introduce Mr. Patrick Pianezza.
Hey,
Now,
everybody.
Patrick is kind of a thing. He's kind of important. I'm kind of a thing, as Ron Burgundy would say. Kind of a big deal. You heard me and Vic on the last episode talking about Code 3, the movie, right? Everybody heard us talking about it. Scott St. Germain went to watch the movie based on what we said on that podcast to go see it. And he saw it. Well, this man that's next to me, this living legend, is the paramedic that wrote or co-wrote the movie Code 3. Patrick, thanks so much for coming on with us, man.
Super excited to be here, guys. It's been a lot of fun so far. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Well, I'm real interested in one. You're quite a bit younger than us. We're a little bit longer in the tooth than you. I'm going to tell you, I was on the streets from 85 to about 92. Vic, how long were you on the truck before you went offshore? Because now I was on the street until then. Then I went offshore and I was doing industrial paramedic work. So I was still the paramedic. Vic, how long were you on the street before you went offshore?
Lord, what? Back then, you had to have a minimum of 5 years on the streets before you
To,
could go offshore.
yeah, to get out there. So Scott, how long were you on the street before you went and got your RN and went to work in the emergency room?
Yeah, so I did 10 years on the truck, and then I did 3 years in the emergency room.
Okay.
Maybe
And,
maybe three and a half.
and now making a killing in medical sales. He's living the
Yeah,
life.
now I develop medical devices for animals. It's great.
So Patrick, there's kind of our background. Let's hear a little bit about yours. When did you start in EMS? What year was it, and where did you start? Where did you work on the truck? Because you're kind of from all over the place, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in the middle of the country. I grew up in rural Illinois, a place called Sherman, just north of Springfield, Illinois. And that's really where I got my start. I got my EMT and joined the fire department. So I was a member of the Sherman Volunteer Fire Department. So I carried one of those like big old red iconic Motorola pagers
Right.
and ran around and did that kind of fun stuff. And I actually did the opposite of Scott. I was actually too young to work for the ambulance service because I wasn't 21 yet. You can't, back then, you couldn't drive unless you were 21. And so the fire department would let me drive an 85-foot long fire truck, but I couldn't drive an ambulance.
Right.
Yeah. So I worked in the ER for roughly 4 years at a level one burn center and trauma center in Springfield, and then volunteered on whenever I wasn't working at Sherman, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth. And then got my paramedic in 2002, so '01, and then I went straight to paramedic school and got my medic in 2002. I worked for a company called America Ambulance. I don't know if it still exists or not for probably like 3 or 4 months after I had turned 21, and then went to the University of South Carolina. So I transferred from Illinois to South Carolina, and I
Okay.
love telling everybody this, and I will defend it till the day I die. Even though I currently live in California, that I went to the real USC. We were a university before these guys over here were a state, so we
Oh
win.
yeah. University of South Carolina is the real USC.
Amen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what did you go to school for at USC?
So I've got 3 degrees. So I've got an associate's in biology from Lincoln Land Community College back in Springfield,
Mm-hmm.
along with it was a non-degreed program, but my they have a certificate of completion for my paramedic back then.
Hmm.
And then I've got a bachelor's degree in public relations from USC, and then a master's in healthcare administration from USC as well. So I graduated in May, was back in class in August, and during that whole time I was working night shift for Lexington County EMS, and then I was also working at the university. The university had kind of this very basic first responder program.
Right.
It was pretty much just easy money, and it was a lot of fun, and I was doing that basically between classes, and so it was a lot of fun. It was easy, and then the 911 work, the real work was at the county. And Lexington is a pretty heavy mix of urban rural, and so you get the urban area is obviously closer to the university, but Lexington County I think is like the second largest county in the state. And so as you get away from that city hub, it gets real rural real quick, and there's not a lot of services out that way. So you had to be on your A game if you had something serious out in like Batesburg, Leesville area.
Well, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, you've had a look at EMS across the country. You've seen it in the Midwest, you've seen it in the South. Yes, guys, South Carolina is still the South. Okay.
It's in
It's
the
not
name.
it's not deep South like we are, but it's in the South.
So is South Dakota.
And
Fair point. Fair point.
and now you're in California. Are you still doing healthcare administration? Are you still working with EMS?
I'm not doing. I don't work in EMS anymore. I'm still
Okay.
licensed. I'm still nationally registered. I forgot to mention I worked a little bit in Johns Hopkins Hospital. So for a year I did my externship in at Hopkins Human Resources. But then because they were paying us like interns, I was on their CCT team. So I was part of Lifeline as well. And then when I did finally move to California, once I got my first real job out of grad school, I worked for an ambulance company called Hall Ambulance for about 10 minutes until I realized that working 2 jobs was no longer feasible now that I was responsible for an entire department, and kind of hung up my stethoscope. So the last time I actually treated a patient is 2013, but I do have I do still have my card and still do it. As for like work, once the I was laid off just as kind of the movie started, and so now I'm kind of riding the wave of the film, and we'll see what happens next.
Right on.
All right. You ready to start getting into some of the questions about the movie?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, the first thing I wanted to ask is what inspired you to write Code 3? And how did it all begin? How did it come about?
So two things. This movie is all of my brother's fault. He's a producer on the film, and it's all because of him. And the whole impetus of this entire film was really a homework assignment. And I've told this on every interview I've been on. For part of my undergraduate degree, I had to take a creative writing class. It was not a screenwriting class. It was just kind of you had to take it as an elective. And so I walked in and was doing the assignments. And this professor, probably about the second week of class, comes in and just says, "If you want to tell a compelling story, write what you know." And I had just came off this hellacious 14-hour shift that was supposed to be 12 hours, and one of those days where you run like 18 calls in 12 hours and
Right.
hair's falling out, and I was completely sleep deprived, and come into class and I heard this guy say it, and all I could think of was, "Oh, you want a story? I'll tell you a story." and,
You
and I
were
went home.
Randy. You were
Yeah, I
Randy.
was. And so I went home and just cranked out this 36-page short story about EMS and burnout and the kind of silliness that we deal with, and the tragedy of it all. And it certainly wasn't going to win any awards. The first draft was garbage. It did good enough. I got an A on the paper, or on the story, I should say.
Right.
And then I just put it put it on the shelf. Never thought of it again. It was no, I had no illusions of making it into a movie or anything like that. This whole thing started out as a homework assignment, and then flash forward 5 years. I've graduated. I'm working in California, visiting my brother who's in LA, and he works in the industry. And I was visiting him, and he said, "Do what everybody does in LA, and that's write a script." And I said, "I don't know anything about writing a script." And he said, "Well, you have that short story." And he goes, "You've been telling us stories for 12 years. Put it on paper." And so I got a copy of the software that's used for making scripts. It's called Final Draft, and I literally took that short story and made it into a script, and it was absolutely awful because I didn't know what I was doing, and it just wrote it all kind of freehand, basically, for lack of a better term. I didn't understand any of the terminology. There was a lot of stuff that would come up in the software, and I was like, I don't know what this means, but
I don't know
I
what a
wrote down
pan or a zoom
yeah,
is or pull
exactly, yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. But I knew dialogue, and I knew the
Right.
story I wanted to tell, so I wrote that, and then my brother read it, and this is garbage. We need to work on it. So we worked on it. He would, and when I say work on it, he was really good at giving notes. So he was good at saying, "I don't like this, fix it." So that was his contribution as far as writing goes. And so went back, rewrote it a couple times, and the very fortunate thing, and I've said this multiple times, I happened to be good, and I got very lucky. My brother worked alongside Chris Leone at this visual effects house that they were both working at, and Chris Leone is the co-writer and the director.
Right.
And my brother approaches Chris and says, "Hey, Chris, do you want to read a script?" To which he emphatically said, "Hell no."
No, no, no.
Which is the right answer for anybody who's not anywhere in this industry.
Yeah.
People all the time will ask you, "Do you want to read this?" And the answer is absolutely not. Nobody wants to read an unsolicited script. But my brother is anything if not determined, and finally got Chris. I think he held him down. I'm not sure how he got it done, but
It's
Chris.
something like out of The Sopranos.
I mean, I can't comment on things. Look at my last name. Uh, but the short version of the story is that Chris read it, and he said, "What's Patrick know about being a paramedic?" And we hadn't met yet. I had not met Chris at this point yet, and my brother just said, "Well, he's been one for 10 years at that time," and he's, "Oh, okay." So that gave me some credibility, and then he liked the story enough, the initial part of the story enough to get involved. And so then we had a meeting. I drove down to LA, and we basically had like an 8 hour conversation about EMS, the story. He didn't know, just like the majority of the community out there doesn't know anything about what really happens when those doors slam,
Right.
and was just really intrigued by it. And one of the first meetings we had, he said he'd never asked me, thankfully, until we got really into the script much later. He never asked me what the worst thing I ever saw was, but he did say at like our first meeting or second meeting, he said, "Tell me something that I would have no idea about." And I just started laughing, and I just said, "I know what brains smell like." And he got up and
Abs-
just turned green and was just
I do
exactly.
too. It it is a metallic taste on the back of your tongue when you walk in a room, like blood, but it also has a wisp of gunpowder in there with it. But of course, that's because that's how I usually ended up smelling brains. Was
Yeah.
self
And
deletes, and we have to be careful what we say here on
yeah.
YouTube. It was self deletes.
I always compared it to mushrooms, but yes, I'm with you. A lot of the times it was not accidental removals, and so yeah, that threw him for a loop, and then we just kept. He got involved and decided that he wanted to be a co-writer on it and wanted to direct it after a couple of stories, and then we wrote on it together for 10 years. Now, for anybody who freaks out when I say that, the 10 to
No,
14 year time frame is not
that's
full time.
quick for a movie, isn't it?
I mean, it depends. We were an independent film. We had zero backing. None of this got paid for. We ended up becoming really good friends. My brother as well was in the mix. And so it was kind of one of those things where I've got a free weekend. Let's work on this. And we would do some work and then not touch it for a month or two. And then come
Right.
back. "Hey, I was thinking about this scene. What do you think about this?" And da da da. But over time, it took us 14 years, 10 years after we finally met to really get it to a place that we wanted to go. And I always credit Chris with the ability to really give it a narrative format. My initial version of the script was just like a call or just like a shift. You could have
Right.
taken the script, thrown it in the air, pages landed where they may, and you could have just picked it up, and there was no, there was, I mean, there was a little bit of an arc, obviously, but for the most part, it was shooting, stroke, chest pain,
Right. Right.
psych
Right.
patient.
Right.
And it didn't have, like, those calls didn't have to happen in any particular order. And that was the one thing I always kept drilling into him was, we promised early on. There was two things that I really admire Chris for trusting me on, for lack of a better term, or really taking to heart. That was number one, we never made fun of the patient. We didn't care why you called
I noted
911.
that. I noted that. You, the scenes, parts of the scenes were funny, but it was never the
Yes.
patient was funny. The
And that took a lot more
situations you
work than
found
people
yourself
think.
in.
Yeah, and that took a lot of work, and I don't, and I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, but the work behind crafting a scene where we are like, everything else can be funny, but we're never going to make fun of the person that's calling 911.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then the other part was that we were going to be medically accurate to the point where it drove the actors and him crazy. Because my big thing was, if someone like me is watching it and the non-rebreather's not filled, I'm already out. I'm just checked out. I don't care.
Guilty. Guilty.
Yeah.
Look, and it's the same thing. That's what Vic and I, like I said, we've gone and seen all these medic movies in the past. Before we ever worked on the ambulance, there was Mother Jugs and Speed, but I mean that was a farce. And then we went and saw another movie called Paramedics, and that was just ridiculous premise. And then Bringing Out the Dead, it was just like Nicolas Cage is not a medic, When
It was. I love to hate. I love to hate Bringing Out the Dead. I think that was an ambitious take that was, until it turned into a cartoon, I think a really good movie. And Nicolas Cage is hard to buy as a paramedic, but
yes,
I'm not at the green splat. It was an awful movie.
well, let me tell you what I thought that Rainn Wilson was a awesome representative of a medic that is burnt out and he is on his last shift and he is drug into having a student on his very last shift. That was chef's kiss. Perfect. Now, here's something else. Rain and Amy worked their way around a unit like they were medics. You could have sold that they'd been in the back of the truck. My other question was, how did you prep them to make it as realistic for them? How did you prep the actors in the realism so they came off as like they've been in a truck forever?
Well, first of all, they're incredibly talented. They just are. And the beauty of Rain's performance is, I think everyone had the same concern that all you would see is Dwight. And Dwight's hilarious and iconic TV character that will live forever. But I think Rain's performance in this film, you never see Dwight Schrute. Like
Oh,
he's not in it at all, which I
all
think
right.
is amazing. Go ahead.
I must confess, I've never seen an episode of The Office.
I have.
Oh
I
yeah.
have.
I
And
have.
I didn't care for him. And when it first came on, I was like, "Is that guy from The Office?" And then I just forgot about it the whole time through the whole movie. Never thought about it
Well,
again. He
well,
did a really good job.
the reason I say that, I had never seen an episode of The Office because I'm not a sitcom guy.
Mhm.
So you got to consider. I mean, I've seen clips where Carell was saying that's what she said to him and stuff like that, and I said, yeah, I kind of recognize his face. Rain is a hell of a dramatic actor.
Very talented. Like, and again, there's little subtle things in his performance that blow me away. That one of the things I've talked about on at Q&As of the film is, as you watch the movie, his uniform becomes more and more disheveled.
Haggard. Yep, Haggard. It's like a
And
shift.
it is. And one of the things that was going on, so we didn't shoot in order, right? So in case anybody doesn't know this, you do not shoot a movie typically
Right.
from the beginning all the way to the end. You shoot the
Like
middle part.
Tarantino. You're
Yeah.
all over the place.
It's whatever's cheapest and fastest. That's what you
Right.
get as soon as you can. And so part of the conversations I was having with Rain is I didn't realize it in real time, except for towards the end of the movie, but early on in the shift, his shirt was untucked. And so I just happened to walk by him and I said, "Hey, Rain, your shirt's untucked." And he said, "That's on purpose." And I didn't know what he was doing. And so I was getting a little irritated. And so I'd go back and say, "Rain, your shirt's untucked. Like, come on, man. We're trying to do this right."
You're trying to be dressed right dress.
Right. And so he was very kind about it too, because again, I mean, I am an actor. I'm an actor now. I'm in SAG and the WGA, but
Oh,
at the time, yeah. So when's that check coming, by the way, for my appearance fee? I just want to clear that up now.
You got a T-shirt on the way to you right now.
But I went, and like I said, he was very kind about it. And I just said, I don't get it. And he said it's because his character was unraveling. And that blew me away in the moment because, again, not something that as a writer for sure, or even as a on-set consultant, did I think about that. And it really, like, those little things that he did a million things right. But that little thing to me always sticks with me because I called it out as wrong and realized how the first time I saw it on screen from start to finish, I cried. It blew me away. I thought it was amazing. Yeah. So getting all the way back to your original question, they're supremely talented. Amy was an amazing find. She did awesome in the menu. She's fantastic in Your Friends and Neighbors. That's a new show on Apple TV. She is perfect for that role. And just a lovely human, I got to add. Rel the same. Rel was amazing to work with. But the way we got them trained up was a week before we started shooting, we had all three of them come to LA, and I had essentially 8 or 10 hours with them. And so I had to take them from knowing whatever they knew about EMS to making them look plausible.
Which was probably nothing.
Yeah,
or
that's what
very little.
And so the very first thing we did was Lifeline is a real ambulance company in Los Angeles. They were fantastic partners. I mean, could you imagine walking up to any ambulance company that you worked with and basically said, "Hi, I need an ambulance for free. I need a bunch of medical equipment, and no, you don't know what's going to happen until it's all done." And they just signed up, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it."
Wow. They're getting free advertisement. Lifeline's all over the movie.
Yeah, they are, but that doesn't mean. I mean, it could have been if we were a god awful movie. That's your name associated with it too. So. Huge
True.
Gamble for them,
right?
And so the very first thing we did is we put them in the truck, and they're getting ready to play with all the toys and everything. I said, "No, get in the back." And they said, "What?" I said, "Get in the back. Don't put your seatbelt on. There's the bar. That's all you get." And we drove, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Buckle up, because here we go." And we took them off. We put them on the interstate. We drove them through LA traffic for a solid half an hour before they got to do anything else. And so we were telling them, I was like,
only
this is
thing
what you're gonna feel like.
Only thing that would have been better is if you gave them IV catheters and told them to stick a cushion in a certain spot. Stick the stretcher with his IV.
So we did that, and then once we brought them back, we got them all healthcare provider CPR certified. All of them went through the class. We taught them how to BVM. They learned CPR, because the other thing that drives me insane is whenever you see CPR in TV and movies, it's terrible. It's on a bed. It's they're not even like, it's just terrible. It's awful. And so we got them all CPR certified. That was my big thing, is we're going to do it. They're going to learn how to do it right. They had to take the test. They all got cards. And then we went through all the other stuff that was really just tailored to the script, because obviously we can't train them to be paramedics. But
correct.
They're obviously not starting real IVs, but we showed them the process. We hooked them up to a monitor. We hooked my brother up to a monitor. And the best part was showing him Artifact. I've got my brother. So you have to imagine. Paul's my younger brother, just for the record, for anybody who's going to come at me in the comments. This is fantastic if you're the older brother. I had him on a 12-lead EKG, and his shirt's off, and he's fine. And all of a sudden I go, "Hey guys, do you want to see Artifact?" And they go, "What's that?" And I just slap my brother on the chest.
Yep, you're a big brother, all right.
And of course the monitor goes buck wild. They didn't know what to do, and I said, "See, that's normal." Then we showed them how to innovate. We let them practice innovating. All of the stuff that you would see. We got them familiar with the stretcher as best we could, and all of the stuff that they were going to be doing in the movie is what we really focused on because, like the very first real scene, you hear Randy go, "Yeah, BSI," and Amy's playing like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so that's how we did it. We had him for a day, and then every day I was on set every day, and
So
whenever
you
we
were
getting
keeping
ready,
it real.
yeah, I was very fortunate. I did not have a normal writer's experience on set. I'm a fun little Easter egg. You'll see me in the background a bunch too because they used me to fill in as well. But the other thing was whenever we were doing anything medical, I was essentially with Rain, Rel, and Amy walking them through whatever it was that they were going to do. And certain days I was very lucky. So the scene with Vincente, my buddy, who Mike is actually named after, one of my old partners, happened to be on set. I invited him to come visit us, and we just happened to be shooting the baseball scene when the real Mike happened to be there. And I said, Mike, we got to teach these guys how to do this. And so we run off, and basically, are we allowed to spoil? Are we spoiling things on your
I,
podcast?
I was. We can, but I wasn't planning on spoiling. In fact, I had told Vic and Scott that I don't want to spoil because I want folks to leave this podcast and go to Amazon Prime and buy this movie and take a look at it, or
Okay, I do too.
Fandango and Apple. What all is it on?
Apple, Apple, Amazon, and Fandango at home right now are the three
Okay,
places you can get it.
okay,
Okay, so I won't spoil it, but very intense medical scene.
yes,
And like I said, the real
heartstrings.
Mike was with me. And so we go off into a corner, and I tell Mike, I said, all right, so here's the scenario. Here's what we got to do. And mind you, I hadn't touched a patient the better part of 10 years. And I said, here's the way I wrote it. Here's what I'm thinking. And so him and I, we just fall back into our old pattern. We were good. We had this whole thing packed up, packaged, ready to go in under 2 minutes. We were both very proud of ourselves. And then we show up and we bring it to Amy, Rain, and Rel. And we say, okay, watch. This is what happens. Boom, boom, boom. We're blindly like looking in the bag. We're getting the BPM. We're doing this. We got the EKG, all of it.
Oh yeah,
And
the
we get
sequence.
done.
Yeah.
We get done. We put them on the stretcher, and they look at us and they just go, no. And we were like, what are you talking about? We could go by it slower. And finally, one of them said the best things ever. And they said, treat this like a dance. Tell us choreography. Because obviously, what never dawned on me was they're never going to check lung sounds. They're not going to actually put an IV
Right.
in. We don't need to worry about their ability to do this medically accurate to the point where we're actually going to, do an intervention that's going to matter. And so they just said like literally write down right foot here, right hand here. And basically that's what we did. We created a dance card. Him and I went through it a couple of times because we actually had one of them write it down because we were doing things from pretty much muscle memory.
Right.
And they were like, stop. Okay, your hand is right here. So that's where we're going to put our hands. And watching them really translate that. So that was a huge eye opener for me, but it was also brilliant to watch these people that had no experience uh, recreate what I would consider a very
It looked
accurate
realistic.
representation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looked great.
And all of
So
them were committed to it. That was the other beautiful thing. Like if you talk to Rain, Rel, or Amy, they could have half-assed it, no question. But they were all invested in making sure that the profession was represented well. And so I'm always going to be grateful for them for that.
well, my thing was speaking of the realism because I thought the calls were so realistic down to the minute details. The details that if you weren't a paramedic, you wouldn't have picked up on it and said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you got into the minutia. So, how close did you get to the edge in doing that, in revealing or reliving these scenarios? Because these came from actual calls, like you talked about.
Yeah, I tell everyone this film is not an autobiography, and that's intentional. It's the main character's name, Randy. It's not Patrick. Randy is definitely 85% me. There's no getting away from it. He was who I was when I was burnt out and working on the truck. However, the calls are an amalgamation of 12 years of experience. So
Right.
what I tell everybody always asks me about Mr. President. Mr. President is a real person, but Mr. President is 10 different real people
Right.
condensed
Exactly.
into one character.
Right.
Some of that stuff was really hard to write. Some of that stuff was really hard to be around sometimes because, the joke, the ghosts are real. They are. Some of them keep crawling back in. The baseball scene's very hard to watch, even to this day. I've seen the
Yep.
movie no less than 100 times, and I still tear up, and sometimes I cry at it. But all of those calls are right on that razor's edge of what's going to really make it real and still be entertaining. And that's the way we approached it. Was one of my favorite comments I see in the comments a lot with people is, I bet this movie's 2 hours. If they wanted to make it accurate, it would be 2 hours of lift assist and being on standby. Nobody wants to watch that movie.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's funny you should say that. I'm going to get to it. One of the things I said, this is as true to life as a 24-hour call could be, minus transfers and standing by, or what they call now posting.
Yeah.
When I worked 24-hour shifts, which I worked, we had stations. So you would clock in, and if you didn't have a call, you could sit at the station. You're waiting on a call. Now these guys are working 12-hour shifts, and they don't have a station. You go to post 42, you go to post 15, you go to post 12. So
Good on the back.
do what?
It's good on the back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta be. So
I've worked a couple of 24s. The majority of my career was 12s, and
Right.
for the majority, definitely the majority of the 12-hour shifts, we had a station. But I've certainly sat on standby for 8 hours and just kind of hated my life. That stickball scene is the closest we could fit into being on standby.
That's exactly what I said. When people go, well, they didn't show them on standby. I said, yeah, they did. They were playing baseball in the parking lot at the store at their post. That's exactly where the hell they were. I knew exactly what was going on. You did a great job there.
Or
Now-
waiting in line for food.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Too. I love that. Now, this isn't much of a spoiler, but Randy goes up wanting to get the free coffee, and oh no, you got to be a cop or a firefighter. That used to irk me. Good Lord, that used to irk me. So
I used to tell people the movie's has a little bit more fun with it. But I don't if I'm in uniform and they offered it to me, great. But I normally didn't ask for it unless there was like that sign. We're trying to make a point about it, but it's really kind of
exactly. But I mean, and the guys, we'd take advantage of it too. There were guys that would take advantage of it. They would. Vic can tell you about somebody. There was a restaurant that would give you a 50% discount if you showed up in uniform. Vic, what was the guy doing on his off days?
Oh, we had a guy taking his family on his off day. He'd get in his uniform. He'd go after church, and he expected a discount for everybody in the family.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Although I'll tell you a funny story. So remember I said I worked for the university.
Right.
And the majority of us that were campus medics were students. A couple of adults in the room, but for the most part, we were all college students. And the emergency vehicle we had was a 1980s Aerostar van. And we would sit there, and the only uniform we would have at the university is basically what I'm wearing now. Gray pullover, it had
Golf
a
shirt.
emblem on it,
Yeah.
Star Alive. And there was a barbecue shop that was not even a quarter mile off campus. In fact, it might even be considered on campus these days. But they would give a discount for those people that were in uniform. And so usually the thing was the person on duty would almost always go down there to get lunch. And the university police were often down there as well. Well, one day, the guy on duty calls most of us and says, hey, I'm going to go to the Pig for lunch. Are you guys interested? And so, yeah, sure. Well, like 6 of us happen to be available. And so we all run home. We all grab our uniform shirts on. So from the top up, we're all wearing uniform shorts. The one guy who's on duty is wearing BDUs. The rest of us are all wearing shorts and cutoffs and whatever. And we show up to the restaurant, And the lady, God bless her, she's an amazing person. She looked at us and she goes, "Which one of you is on duty?" We go, "All of us."
We just
And
had a mass casualty over at the Commons.
and she gave us a lot of grace and just said, "Look, I know what you guys look like. You guys get the discount all the time. Just don't like because most of us were not pressed. They were just ugly shirts, etc.
Yeah.
But we came in and she was nice enough to give us a discount. The best part of this story was though, so we're all in the van and we're all driving back up to the health center, the student health center, and a call comes in. And normally we would only run one person. It's just a first responder program. It's
But
just
y'all all got 10-8.
Yeah, that was the best part. So, they make the call out of the radio. And so I looked at the guy who's working it. Give me your radio. He gives me the radio. And I go, our call signs were all in the 700s back then. It was like 703, 706, 707, 710, 714. We're all responding. There's this long pause over the radio. And you hear dispatch go, "I think we only need one of you."
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, all right, here was the other question in making movie magic. I've got some questions dealing with that. One, when I was working on the truck, me and my partner Joe Paul would sit down and said we ought to write this shit down, but nobody would believe us. Half the stuff that we were living. I said we ought to write this stuff down. He said, they won't believe you, Rob. He was an old Vietnam vet that was my partner. He was an EMT basic. I was a paramedic. And he was crazier than a shithouse rat. But he was fun to work with, man. It's always fun to have one of those crazy partners. But when y'all were making this movie, was there any time that you had to put your foot down and say, no, a paramedic would not do it this way? Or was there anything that you had to fight to say, no, this needs to stay in the script the way it's written so that it stays authentic?
The beauty of the relationship that I had with Chris was that only happened one time. And the fight really wasn't with him. And I wouldn't even really call it a fight. They knew that when it came to anything medical, it was my domain. And I am not, I want to be abundantly clear. I'm not the co-director. I'm not a director. I only co-wrote it and was the technical consultant. So for all intents and purposes, that means that I could be overwritten at any point in time. Just putting that out there.
Right.
The beauty of having that close of a relationship with arguably one of my best friends now, Chris Leone, is that they would defer to me whenever it came to anything medical. There was one time where the producers, which are usually, they're like project managers and they represent the money. So they have quite a bit of sweat. Whenever you see producers in the movie, just know that they are somehow attached to the people that gave money to make the movie happen. So they've got a lot of pull. They get together and a couple of the producers and the director of photography and the first AD and Chris were talking about basically creating this scenario. And I'll be honest, I don't remember what it was, but they were telling me about it. And I just started going, no, like inadvertently. I wasn't trying to be mean. I just, no. And they said something else. I said, no. And they go, but it would be really cool because it sets up this other thing. And I just said, no, this doesn't work. This is completely fake.
It's not realistic, right?
Yeah, these people would know that that's not how this works. And one of the producers said something along the lines of like, well, you don't understand movie making or something. And I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work. These guys would know that whatever. I honestly am not making this up. I truly forgot what it was. But it was like this adamant battle that for whatever reason I was willing to die on this hill. And there was a long pause. And the director of photography, Mark Williams, was great. He kind of looks up and he says, well, Patrick said no. We'll figure something else out.
We needed somebody to second what Patrick said. Thank you, director of photography, Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Was there a particular scene that you wrote for that movie that you're particularly proud of that made it in the movie? Something that the one scene that was most important to you that ended up in the movie that we all see? Because I know a lot of it hits the editing room floor.
It does. And one of my favorite scenes ever did hit the editing room floor, which I'm still heartbroken about. But that's when it comes down to the difference between money and power, right? Like I have an opinion, somebody else has $1 million and they win. That being said, for me, one of the things that I'm really proud of, and ultimately comes down to the way that Rain played it, was the tirade after he says this job breaks everybody, and
Yep.
he goes around like right when he breaks, and there was never any pushback about the frankly the vulgarity of that scene, the everything that's happening around it, and his just unloading of everything, which I thought was I was really proud of that, and it's funny in retrospect to be really proud of that scene. I'm also like very very proud of the way that they handled the baseball scene. That I thought to me
Yep.
that went from professional to very heartwarming to very professional again, and it was you know really I'm it's kind of like pick your favorite baby. Like I think all of it uh, is really well done, and I think that what I'm proud of is that the thing I'm most proud of more than any one scene is for me it felt authentic and hopefully it comes off as what other people think as well.
I certainly did. I tell you what, I was right there with Rain when he was throwing those patient reports out the window. You know,
Yeah,
that was the unraveling, and I love that. You know, he was like, "I'm out of here." I mean, it was perfect for this is my last shift. I think that's been in trailers, so I can say that that's happened and not spoil the movie. Also, back to what we were talking about before, you know, stuff that hit the editing room floor. Can we expect a director's cut possibly? Buy another package
God,
for
I
the
hope
director's
so.
cut? Huh?
I hope so, but I have no control over that. I would love to resurrect. There's there's one scene for sure that I am absolutely wrought over that did not make it into the movie, and that was a call that even that well, I'm not going to speak for Chris, that I am very heartbroken about. Uh, and I
I
would
will
love
buy, uh, producers, I will buy another copy with the director's cut if y'all offer it to us. I promise you I'll buy it. And especially if you throw a tag in on there and show us bloopers or the behind the scenes stuff. I'm a fiend for that kind of stuff.
that stuff was great. There's my favorite bit about that. So just kind of segueing into bloopers real quick. Rob Riggle, who is incredible
Plays
in
the
real life.
heavy.
He plays the heavy. He's a very funny man. He's also very tall. So I'm 5'6" on my best day, and Rob is like 8'9". He is 10 times more handsome in real life than you think he is on camera. He is, and he's just hilarious. And there was one time when we're in the ER and he flubbed a line and he didn't realize it.
Right.
And it's basically it's the line of something like you can thank your friends at EMS
Yep.
is how he
Yep.
said it. And I go, Chris, I nudged Chris and I said, Chris, he said it wrong. It's not going to sound right. I go, it's supposed to be in, not at. And Chris looks at me and Riggle is still in character. And for those of you who don't know, Rob Riggle is a former Marine officer in the Marine Corps. And so
I
he
can see
goes
that.
from being jolly to menacing in an instant. And it is terrifying if he's staring you down. And so Chris looks at me. I told Chris, I go, the line got a little messed up. And he goes, you go tell him.
Now
I
I'm
go
going to have
running.
to. Did he correct it or did it go in as you can thank your friends at? I thought he said in EMS.
Yeah, he did. He corrected it.
Okay.
But you have to imagine, like, I go jogging up to him. I was like, hey, Rob. And he's just like, and then I've got to be like, you flubbed the line. It's this, not that. Here's why. And then he just cracks up. He's like, great, thanks.
All right.
It was
So
such a
Patrick,
mind
what
bending
you were
moment. But yeah,
saying you were sad one scene didn't hit. What was that?
so when Rain breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to the audience, we had
Love
a
that part.
really great explainer on VFib. So it happens right after the first call, and it's this cartoonish it's cartoonish in its way of being done, but it's a really great explainer. It's about 90 seconds long, if that,
Right.
where we talk about the actual realities of out of hospital survival rates and VFib are very small, unless there's somebody there with electricity. Hashtag, that's why AEDs are important, learn CPR.
Yep.
But the reality of out of hospital cardiac arrest is virtually zero. After 7 minutes of no CPR, everybody who's listening to this knows there's not a whole lot we're going to do.
Yep.
But we had this really funny take on that, which sets up a scene further down the road in the movie. And it got cut because, I don't know all the reasons why, but the producers were worried about runtime. And it's one of those scenes that, to me, I was like, it does so much in so little time, and it's another fourth wall break that people seem to really like about our movie. So it was really heartbreaking to lose it. But yes, I hope for a director's cut too.
I'm right there with you. So this movie, when I watched it the first time, Vic and I went to the theater. I went back to the theater again and watched it. And after I went to the theater with Vic, I pre-ordered it on Amazon Prime and got my copy. So I was waiting with bated breath for today. And then today, I said, okay, I'm going to be interviewing Patrick. I said, let me make sure that I watch it again. So I'm watching it again, and that's when I spotted you in the movie, giving Randy a pat on his back when he retired. And I said,
Yeah,
that's Patrick! So there's Easter eggs in there. Patrick's in there, and you're in there in not just that scene, right?
Yeah, so I joked earlier about being in SAG-AFTRA, which is the actors union.
Well, wait a second. Don't tell me the scenes, because I got to go back. When we get done with this episode tonight, I'm not going to start editing. I'll edit tomorrow night. I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to find you in every scene you're in.
Well, the reason I'm in, I won't spoil it for you, but the reason I'm in is I wrote myself a line, and the woman. So this is some inside baseball. When we were shooting, somebody on set got COVID and it shut us down for a week. So as you can imagine, this is early 23, and the COVID requirements were kind of waning, but we still had to get tested every single day with nasal swabs before we.
Yeah, y'all are in California. Y'all are still doing all that. We're back to lip rocking and rolling over here.
Yeah, but the part of the union requirements for shooting at the time was you had to get tested every single day that you were on set. And so somebody got COVID, shut us down for a week. The reason I say that is the woman that's on screen, Aisha Harris, the woman who asks for a raise, at the very early part of the movie, right when Rain finds out he gets a student, there's a woman behind
Yeah.
So her name's
His supervisor.
No, that's Yvette Nicole Brown.
Okay.
She's a fantastic talent.
Yes.
Aisha's the girl behind the door. In that one small scene. She's in the pit now. She plays a physician in the pit. I was texting her later. I said, "You went from paramedic to doctor in less than a year. Congratulations."
I went and saw. I mean, I've seen the pit, and it's funny you mentioned the pit, because I was explaining at work to people about this movie, and I said, "This is the pit for EMS, but with the gallows humor that we have."
Yeah,
that's what I compared it to.
Well, I'm honored, and that's certainly a high bar. I am a huge fan of the pit. I thought they did an absolutely fabulous job with that show. But the reason I bring it up is the woman who's behind the desk, Aisha, who's now on the pit. She was my partner in the movie, and because of COVID, we lost all of the scenes with her because she was committed to work on another show on the week when we came back. So her and I had a very minute portion of the film, but we had a little part together, and we were partners in the movie that never made it because she had to go shoot whatever it was that she was working on after our movie closed. However, the reason I'm in SAG-AFTRA is I wrote myself a line in the movie. And so once we came back to shooting and Aisha's gone, Chris comes up and he says, "Well, I guess we're going to have to cut that scene, so you're not going to get your line." I grabbed him. I said, "No one in Hollywood's given this face a chance. So you can cut it. But we're gonna shoot at least one take where I get to say a line."
That's perfect, man. All right, so let me check this off. Bullshit calls, check. Frequent flyers, check. Trauma call, check. Full arrest, check. Nursing home cadaver, check.
That's a lot of fun. That was very cathartic to write that.
Yeah, precept in the FNG, check. Uh, Killing time during the standby, check. We already discussed that. And psychiatric calls. Speaking of those psychiatric calls, talked to somebody else that saw the movie and said, well, they were patronizing to the psych patient. And I said, no, they weren't patronizing. They were role playing to help that person having a mental crisis get to the unit and get the help they need. That was my take on it. So
and that's exactly what we tried to do with it.
So chef's kiss on that. And my only question is did you get a Secret Service badge for
that? We should have. We should have. Remember, I told you earlier on that all of these calls are like 10 different people kind of melted into one.
Yeah.
There was a scene. It wasn't a presidential scene, but we did do the jumping on the truck to make it look like a helicopter.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman that was a vet, and that really helped him.
That's our evac.
Like
our evac's here. It's in the LZ. Come on, get in here. That's right.
And it's funny you mentioned the Secret Service. You can't see it because my background's blurred, but
yeah.
I have been, not Secret Service, never been in the military. I don't ever claim that. But I did, when God, I can't remember the guy's name. John McCain. Jesus, that's it.
Yeah.
When John McCain was running for president, after he got the Republican nomination and had Secret Service protection assigned to him, he did a campaign stop in South Carolina. Well, he flew in on Air Force One with George W. Bush.
So you had to get cleared.
I did, and so I have been in a presidential motorcade. Although the funniest bit was, one of the guys that I trained got the president, and I got John McCain. And that's not disparaging. We never actually met, unfortunately. I do have this lovely certificate behind me that you can't see. But yeah, the guy I trained, because I remember fighting with my supervisor. I said, how do I not get I trained John. How does John get the president? And he goes, you're a part-timer. And I was like, yeah, but I've been a medic for 10 years now.
I'm the paramedic with all the experience.
And he said, there's no way I could go to the Secret Service and tell them a part-timer is taking care of the president. And so I was, that's fair. So I got John McCain.
That's awesome.
Like I said, unfortunately, we never met in person, but he was nice enough. I sent him the little certificate, and it obviously, again, you can't see. I know you can't see it, but it says, "Thanks for watching my back."
I believe it's back there. I believe you.
Yeah.
So
thanks for watching my back. Thanks for having my back.
That's what he says. Thanks for watching my back.
Right on.
And let's see. Can I?
You're on blur.
You can unblur.
You're gonna have to unblur it.
There you go. There you go.
It's right there.
There he is. That's a picture of John too.
That's John McCain, and that's my little certificate. And then somewhere around this area is where it says, "Thanks for watching my back."
Yeah, I like the fire helmet too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Sherman Fire. That's my old patch, and then that's a life-saving award I got when I was at Lexington County.
I got
that's
you.
Cool.
That's very cool. Very cool.
The only thing I have is one gold patch. That's all I have left. I think I might have one uniform. Oh, you know what I have, Rob?
What's that?
I got the mobile medic jacket still. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that. They're
gonna they'll send the cops after you for that.
Stealing uniforms. I got you on tape now.
Come get me.
Mobile medic is no more. I think he's safe. Statute of limitation is way since passed.
Yeah.
And look, I had a question. You mentioned Rob being the heavy, and every movie has to have a heavy. I understand, but I mean, good Lord, I've been good friends with ER docs that I brought in, and yeah, you've got some shitty ER docs. Surely, you got to have a heavy, but this wasn't all ER docs. I want everybody to know this is not the way of all ER docs. This is probably a consortium of every ER doc that was ever shitty to this man, and wrote into that movie. Am I correct in saying that?
You are 100% correct. Some of my closest friends are
Yeah.
practicing ER docs, and I
Mhm.
say the same thing about police officers too.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to never take a dump on cops. I have had cops quite literally save my life, but for the purposes, we've all met, for lack of a better term, the SWAT cop that has no life,
Yep.
and that's what they pretend to
Yep.
do.
Yep.
We've all had real shitty docs on the end of their shift. So those characters are cartoons of the worst people that we worked with.
Yeah, I
Well,
think I personally, I think I've ran into those docs too, and but they're outweighed by the great doctors that, like I said, become my best friends as well. My own personal physician, I worked in the ER with, so and compassionate people.
And the flip side too, like I know all of you have stories of really shitty paramedics out there and
Oh
EMTs.
yeah,
Like
yep. Oh
I'm
yeah.
not trying to make us I'm not trying to make us saints, but this is a story about us.
No,
And
we're
so
all human.
obviously,
I
yeah.
guarantee you.
and
Uh,
I don't think it made it out to be a saint. I think it was perfect to you really that last day, that burnout day, I felt that. I remembered I didn't have one day, I had about a year of burnout or more, maybe more, but that's what I felt from the movie. I thought that's what you really hit well.
Thank you.
yep. And like I said, no spoilers. But yeah, you really touched on a. It was an emotional roller coaster, that movie. You know, and that's what you're looking for in a movie. And like I said, but for those transfers, you should have taken one person to dialysis.
I
Right.
know.
One 500-pound person.
Yeah, that's right.
Who
That's
just
right.
stops breathing halfway through because their kidneys have just said, you know what, or the potassium skyrocketed.
Yeah, yeah. Now,
Actually,
you got to
have you ever
understand.
converted VFib with a loud verbal stimuli? That's my question. That's my
I
claim to fame.
With loud verbal stimuli, you have converted VFib.
I have converted VFib one time in my career with loud verbal stimuli. You can imagine the expletive I shouted when I saw it on the monitor. And all of a sudden
Absolutely.
it's
I know
like,
I know the expletive. You can say that expletive on here, but I know you may not, because this has been such an awesome interview. You don't want to ruin it with getting crass with us, which we get pretty crass. And we will the longer we stay in here. I wanted to thank you for the movie, and I wanted to ask you one last question, and then I'll open it up for Vic and for Scott to ask any that I didn't cover. Is what's next for you in writing? Are you considering continuing on with writing, or what?
yeah, I mean, the goal is to, live in make believe forever. I think that would be great. I would love nothing more than to turn Code 3 into a series or a procedural, or some of my other favorite comments were like, "Are you going to write Code 4?" And I was like, "I don't think you know what that means, but that's fine."
Right.
You could write priority one.
Yeah, there you go.
They changed it now. There's no more code three.
Uh, but yeah, so I've got other stuff that's written. We're trying to pitch. I've got kind of what I'm calling a reverse mafia movie where the cops are bad and the cons are good. And then I have like this very expensive international thriller that no one's going to give me. That movie is like a $300 million movie, but got that movie in my back pocket. And then my
Oh.
brother and I he's with all of the projects, but the other project we're looking at is doing kind of an animated series that makes fun of U.S. healthcare, because I've
Oh
worked
yeah,
clinically in administrative circles. It's kind of South Park meets hospitals, and you can just get very, very crass, very mean, because nobody cares if you kill a cartoon character, kind of thing.
that's right.
And
Oh
just
my God, they killed Kenny.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. But the reality is, Hollywood, the industry is very fickle and very challenging. And so, I'm working a regular job like everybody else did. No one on this movie got paid $1 million. So unless, everybody and their brother goes and buys and or rents this movie, like I go to an office job like everybody else does.
Right,
That
right.
was going to be my question was, do you know what around what the budget of the film was?
The film was budgeted at 7.5 million.
Oh, okay. I
I,
didn't know.
uh,
So
I who's who was it your idea to open it up like that? It's where you're sitting riding shotgun. Wait,
As you mean as how it was written, like in
no,
terms
the way the movie opened up, and you're in the ambulance, you're riding shotgun.
oh yeah,
Not
that was
it's actually it's not you're not even seeing the paramedic. It's just your vision
Oh
of
yeah,
your riding shotgun. That right away that kicked me into and then seeing the lights flicker on the
yep.
on the street
so.
signs and stuff. That brought me back to those days. That was really good.
I'm really glad you picked up on that. That's one of those subtle things that we really wanted to do. The whole goal, when you listen to Chris on any of his interviews, the way he shot the movie and the way that Mark executed what Chris's vision was, which I think is spectacular, is that we always wanted the audience to feel like the third or fourth paramedic in the truck.
Yeah.
Um, we
Like
shot
the
with very
FNG.
close, yeah, we shot very close cameras. The whole idea of us looking out, because everybody always sees an ambulance. Everybody who's never worked
Hmm.
always sees from the outside in. They're always looking at the side mirrors or on the windshield. We are one of the privileged few that get to see from the driver's seat out. Or one of my favorite scenes is like Amy sitting in the back and she's looking out the back window. So that is a
Good, yeah.
very unusual perspective that people don't get. And you didn't ask this question, but what I want to offer it up. One of my favorite visual scenes in the entire film is after they have this tragic call and Randy asks them to turn the lights on. And you get it's nighttime and you're getting the reflections of the lights
That's
bouncing off of them in the cab. And that was one of the things I told Chris about. And unfortunately, because all modern ambulances now have LED lights, I would always tell Chris when I was working, we had the strobes,
rollers.
and so if you weren't running sirens and you were just running lights in the middle of the night
You hear
and you
them.
were in the cab, all you would hear is tick 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 tick
Yep.
tick 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 tick
Yep.
tick tick tick. And I was like, I want that in the movie. And the hardest part was finding those sound effects, and we couldn't find them. And the
Really?
ambulance that we were using was using LEDs, so they didn't have it. And so the visuals are fantastic. And the only thing that I would add, if I could, is getting that sound effect of
Yep.
those ticks.
Patrick, I didn't even know that they don't have that's not the sound in the ambulance anymore. I
Yeah.
didn't know that the LEDs didn't make that noise.
I was super upset because that was the sound crew. I will absolutely give props to the sound crew. So 424 Post was the sound department that worked on our film, and they did an amazing job. Like we literally took the truck out for a day and a half, and they mic'd everything. They put a microphone on the exhaust, in the engine compartment, in the cap. Like they put microphones all over this truck, and all
Yeah.
I told them was like, I want this ticking sound. We combed through hours of sound effects, and it because they're LEDs, they don't make that sound.
You
Wow.
know what you could have done to get that sound was go find, like we have, you can go find an old ambulance that's out of service now.
Yeah.
We've got deep south fire trucks, and you can find a
Yeah.
1986 Type 2 Ford Econoline 350, and it's got the Code 3 lights up top. That's what I
Uh-huh.
started with. The Code 3 lights or the Force 4 lights.
Hmm.
And you could hear the whines that they made. You could, I promise you, that hindsight's 2020. That's the way I would
Right.
have got that sound. I would have said, "Hey, we got to go, not buy the damn unit, but go and ask them, hey, can we go in there and record some sounds in this unit that they've
You're right,
restored?"
Patrick. That would have been a really good. That's another one that would have drove me home hearing
Yep.
that. Again.
That was the only as far as sound goes. I think everything else is perfect, but
Mhm.
and it is perfect. It's something that I wanted that we couldn't get, and that was
Well,
just because we literally couldn't get the sound.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't
well,
know if I really wanted to feel like I was back in the unit again, but it brought me back there, and it was good. It was really good.
well, Vic, did you have anything you wanted to talk about with?
No, I think they did a great job. I enjoyed the movie. It brought back a lot of memories, some old, some not so old, since I'm just getting out. But
It's amazing.
thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I
Right.
say, I got 32 years right now total.
Yep.
Oh,
That's
So
incredible.
Vic was like me. He's watched the progression, and I came off the truck. I went offshore in like '94. So I came off the truck and was pretty much just an offshore medic. My protocol, from what Vic's telling me, the shit I carried on a truck, they don't carry anymore.
No, no, no,
You,
no.
like somebody was
Morphine.
bertilium tosylate, yes sir, bertilium, uh, and
Propranolol.
Yeah.
propranolol, absolutely. And we used to if you came up and you had CHF, 80 Lasix. Now
Yeah.
they aren't pushing Lasix like that. They're put them on a CPAP. We didn't have
Hmm.
a
Yep.
CPAP. We didn't have like when we were taking the blood glucose level. We didn't have a machine that you put on there. We had to put the dot on the strip, wait 30 seconds, dry it off, and we took the bottle and matched the
Yeah.
colors up to get the range of what the blood glucose was. That's
I
what
thought you
we
were going to say you
had.
were going to lick it and see if it was sweet or not.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it was. I mean, I started on the ambulance when I started as an EMT ambulance. That's what I started as. They weren't EMT basics. You were called an EMT ambulance. You could be an EMT, and that's your volunteer fireman that went and got their EMT. Or you could be an EMT ambulance, and you had the rocker for ambulance under it. And that meant that you were working on an ambulance or you were working for a rescue service. And then you had EMT intermediate, and then you had EMT paramedic.
Yeah, when I
So
came up, it was basic, intermediate, paramedic, and I know it's changed now, but
yeah,
that's what I came up.
they've got basic, they've got a EMT, advanced EMT, which is an intermediate, and then they've got the paramedic. But they're
And
EMT
critical care paramedic.
and critical care paramedic now. Yeah. So
Patrick, so I only wrote down one question I really had to ask you, and from because the movie's really about that the burnout moment for that medic. What would you have to say for aspiring paramedics watching the movies, young people who want to become a paramedic? What advice would you give them on how to handle that emotional toll and maybe to avoid burnout?
I think it's tough and it's different for every individual person. Like everybody has their own level of ability to absorb trauma. However, I think that there are things that everyone can do to help mitigate that danger. And I am a huge advocate of not just critical stress debriefing, but therapy. And I've been very open about the fact that it took me a solid 3 years of therapy to get back to what I consider myself normal.
Wow.
And what I would tell anybody is number one, I love the job. The job didn't love me back. And when I was coming up, I'm sure just like most of you, asking for help was seen as weakness and
yep.
it was just not a thing. They have gotten, I will give credit where credit is due. It has gotten much better. I still don't think it's where it needs to be, but it's better than when we were coming up.
And we
However,
didn't have anything.
yeah. And what I tell
They
everyone that's
we
coming
didn't
up is
have time. We had another call coming in.
yeah. I think that what I would tell anybody is number one, make friends outside of this industry.
Hmm.
That's the first level of defense. And remember, I was in college for the bulk of my career. So you would imagine being at a big university, 30,000 students at Carolina, that I would make, and I did. I'm not shorting myself. I did have plenty of people my age that I could hang out with, but the vast majority of what I would consider my close friends were cops, firefighters, and paramedics.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and
And
that's
that's what
not
I was
healthy.
fixing to say. You said outside of this industry. Well, I had a bunch of cop friends, a bunch of firefighter friends. They weren't in my industry, but they don't count
They don't
because
count.
they're all first responders. They're all the people we have on this podcast is who I'm talking about.
And I
Yeah.
think it's important that you're around what I would consider normal people because the problem with having friends that are just in this club, and I'll use that instead of first respond, people that are in this niche, is it gets very insular very quickly, and that leads to dehumanizing not just the patients but the stuff that we deal with, and so
Yeah.
super important that you have normal people in your life that you can bounce off of, because
Civilians.
yeah, exactly, that you can, that will help buffet a little bit of this. The
Good
second
point.
thing I tell everybody is you don't need to go to therapy every day or every week. However, you need to find a therapist that, number one, can put up with your bullshit, that has their meter turned up, that knows when you're just saying, "Yeah, I'm living the dream," and can actually dive deep, and have that person on speed dial for when stuff gets real, um, and asking for help when you need it. Those are the big things of, uh, you know, when your normie friends are saying like you're getting crispy or we can't stand being around you anymore, is normally how that conversation goes. That's when you should make that second call to that therapist that you've already pre-vetted, so that way you can stay in this industry. And the third thing is, when you get time off, take time off. I can't speak for everyone in this field. I'll only speak for myself. But I had this sensation that I never thought of myself as a hero, but I always thought of myself as like, I've got this very unique skill set. And if I don't go to work, somebody could die. Not because of me, but because there's such, in the grand scheme of the global population, the people that are trained to do what I do is really small. So if I don't go to work, somebody might die. And the reality is, with 20 years of experience after the fact, you know what? Take your time off and get away from this and decompress. And that was something I very rarely did. And so those are my three big pieces of advice to anybody that get into the field. Like, again, do the job. I loved this job. It was very formative, especially as a young adult. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I loved to hate it, but I did not have the safeguards that I know about now. And again, it's make normal friends that you, and you have to put the effort in. Let me be abundantly clear. No one's coming to your front door and say, "Hey, let's be friends." It's not fair. But if you want friends in the real world, you have to do the work. You've got to be the friend. Sorry to tell you this. You got to put the effort in. Nobody wants to hear about the dead baby in the microwave. You got to be a normal human, at least in the beginning.
My roommate was we went to paramedic school together, and we worked together, and that was my roommate. And then we'd go to the bars, we'd meet the rest of the group that we were working with, the other paramedics. We that's all we partied with, and that's all we hung out with. And
Because all the normies start to gravitate away, because the more alcohol you drink, the more you start telling war stories. And the
yeah,
people are just like, "I don't want to be around this. I don't
yeah,
need to hear the story."
yeah,
Right.
Um, but I do think it's the other thing too, and I've said this before. I do think, and I firmly believe this, that a certain amount of gallows humor, the dark humor that we share amongst our own ilk, uh, is is important, and I would
therapeutic.
even argue that it's healthy.
Yeah, therapeutic. Yeah,
Giant asterisks. When it becomes your only personality trait, you have a problem.
Now,
Right.
those words, I hate people, it's time for a nice long break.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And for you, Vic, that's a nice long motorcycle trip.
You got that right.
All those years working on the ambulance, treating everybody that wiped out on those bikes, Vic's still
I can't
tooling down
believe
the
that.
road on them.
Not me. No way.
I'll do it until I can't throw my leg over it, and then we're going to
Yeah.
get one that's a wheelchair with a motor on back.
That's right.
What
That's
was your
right.
escape, Patrick?
Really, it didn't come till after I was out. I've told this story before, without naming names. For me, this was while I was working, and I had realized, I had come to the self realization that I was burnt out, and I was even using the words like, "I'm burnt
I'm
out.
burnt.
I
Yeah.
know I'm burnt out. I kind of hate everything right now. I'm not happy." I will also say this. Thankfully, I never struggled with suicide ideation, or drug addiction or alcoholism. So, and that's not. I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody who's had
Yeah.
those struggles. I was just happened to be very fortunate. But I realized that I was in the bad place, right? And I went to my supervisor. And one of the things I always prided myself on was that I was always really good at IVs. Whether you were a diabetic or a dialysis patient,
Yeah.
like, one of the things that I was always good at is I could get a line in you no matter what.
Right.
And I went like a week straight with not being able to hit the broadside of a barn, like an 18-year-old military academy graduate with veins this big, and I was blowing it like crazy.
Wow.
And I remember going to my to one of the supervisors. And the reason I don't name names is this is not against them. They did
Yeah.
not have a better answer. I went to them and I said, I think I'm burning out and I don't know what to do. And they just laughed at me and they said, "We're all burnt out. Get back on the truck."
Yep.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that was a line we originally had in the movie that unfortunately got cut. Um, but to me, that was kind of like, well, I guess this is my life now. And that certainly did not help. Um, but that to me was that was my breaking point. And then I also, like I said, the other part of that was the guilt for not going to work. Uh, because I thought that, not that the world rode on my shoulders. I don't have a God complex about it, but
Yeah.
I did feel a little guilty every time. I was like, well, I should be doing my part.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, and so to me, that was when I realized that I needed to get out. And fortunately, by the time I got to Bakersfield, I got a very well paying job running a department that I didn't need to work EMS anymore as a second, where I needed a second job.
Right.
And that obviously is not available to everyone either. And so I just happened to get really lucky, and that was the perfect time for me to get out.
Yeah. I had a perfect time to get out too. As my father was a veterinarian, and I grew up in a veterinary hospital thinking I was become a veterinarian myself. Do you remember
Oh,
Rescue 911?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so in 1988, I'm a sophomore. No, I'm a junior in high school, and I am going to be a veterinarian. I have no doubt. And I watched these two guys on Rescue 911, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And I joined our local fire department right away, there, a local volunteer fire department. And then I got I got my firefighter. Now I got to do my EMT. I want to get on the rescue truck, and then I want to become a paramedic. And worked my way over to the coast. Completely changed the direction that my family saw me going in. Once I hit the burnout, and I thought, well, I can make some more money in the emergency room, and I can get off the truck. I won't be having to sit on a post for 12 hours. That was not the answer. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy in the emergency room. I needed to be, running down the road, and I needed to be outside, and all that ingenuity that we came up with in the field. When we had to make something work, we made it work, and I took that creativity and I built a business around it. So that was my escape.
That's awesome. And I tell people this all the time. I said this on an interview, and I don't think the person, whoever it was, I don't know, I've done like, I feel like 100 interviews since this movie came out. But I remember I said, one of the most gratifying things as a young adult, and sub 28-year old, being knowing full well that no matter what comes over this radio, that when you show up, it could be the most crazy, god awful, whatever, and truly having the confidence to go, my partner and I are going to figure this out.
That's right.
Like,
Yep.
there was something, and that's not about, for anybody who's watching this and going, oh, he's got a god complex. It's not about putting
No,
your cape
not at
on.
all.
It's like, grandma fell down in the bathroom, but it's upstairs in the between the toilet and the shower,
And the
and there are
stair
hoarders.
makes 390s to get up there.
And you got to figure out how to get there. And of course, by the time you get there, they're in arrest or respiratory distress. So now you get, not only that, you got to figure out how to get down there. You got to figure out the logistics to move the stuff out the way to make sure the stretcher fits. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, so fire is not getting out of bed to help you. And that ability, and then once you get them in the truck, it's you got protocols and training, and to be able to walk into any situation and just to know in your gut, like whatever this is, I may need to ask for help. I may need to get other resource, all that stuff. But to know that I can walk in confidently with me and my partner and we'll figure it out.
Yep.
And I always loved that portion of the job.
And
Yeah.
have you noticed in your life post EMS, because I've noticed this, there are lots of people that are out in the workforce that can't do that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't follow the prescription, they don't think outside the box. Okay, I've got to get this done. How am I going to get this done? And you come up with a way to get stuff done that other people just flounder. You know.
Yeah.
So
Where did we pick that up? I mean, who taught us that? You know, maybe it was the paramedic that when we were an intermediate or we were a basic and we were able to learn those skills from that paramedic. But I mean, we nobody taught us, you know, how to maintain composure on a scene,
and
you know. But
problem
if you
solve.
didn't, if you weren't, then there was no compose. There was all chaos on a
Right.
scene. So, you know, you had to have that. But, you know, where did we pick that up from?
My paramedic instructor always said, by the time someone has called 911, they have run out of their own options.
Hmm.
Like they have done, whether it's a hangnail or not, it doesn't matter what their emergency is. They have called you because they have run out of things that they can think to do to save their own life. Now they're looking to you. Now it's up to you. What are you
Yep.
going to do? How are you going to help? Um, and I always, that's one of those things that always stuck with me is like, this person's asking for help. Doesn't matter what that help is or why they're calling, or I don't care. It's, you're asking for help. My job is to show up. My job is to help. Now, there are plenty of instances where you're dead and gone, or there's not much I can do for you, but my job is to help as best as I can. And again, going back to that, sub 28-year-old, no one trains you. I'm sure they do now. I'm hoping they do, but like when you got to go tell the family that grandma didn't make it, or whatever, like that is
Uh,
that, let me tell you, there's not a lot of college kids that are doing that job. And so
No.
when I would, the juxtaposition of that was when I go back to school and somebody's freaking out about a test score, I was like, we are not on the same planet here, guys. Like,
Well, you act like you're Gen X. You may not be Gen X, but
Well,
you know,
I, I, I received an answer to a survey just yesterday on email from the National Registry. One of the questions is suggestions about the nationwide shortage of paramedics.
pay them.
yeah, exactly. It's a
Well,
very
yeah,
simple
of course,
answer.
that's one of my first things. You got to make the pay worthy of somebody to go to school and get that and make sure it's college accredited. They get the hours for it.
Yep.
Because when I went through, you did not.
No, it was
Where I went,
I
vocational
did.
degree.
I
Yeah,
did.
mine's a certificate.
Yeah.
and
You
then
got your associate's degree, Patrick, off of it, didn't you?
No, that was completely separate. There were two different programs. I did my associates and my certificate.
Ah,
right, and then you've got to make a benefit package worthy of being in that industry, just like any other industry.
Right.
how much were
Amen.
you making when you were up in Illinois up there as a paramedic? What year would you start?
I got started in, I got my basic in '01, my paramedic in '02.
And what was the paramedic pay in '02?
Oh Jesus, the paramedic pay was it was less than $8 an hour for a
Yeah.
24-hour shift. They also did this stupid thing. I don't know if you guys ran into this, but
Shift
if you worked
differential.
yes,
Sleep. If you're sleeping.
yeah, if you worked at 24, you got paid less per hour than if you
Yep.
worked at 12.
Yep.
And yeah, it was the dumbest thing ever. But yeah, I'm 1,000% with you, Vic. Like it should be a college. And nurses hate when we make this comparison, and I apologize to any nurse that hears me say this, but let's be real. EMS and nursing are the skill sets are comparable. I'm not going to say they're equal, but they're certainly comparable, especially at the paramedic level. At the paramedic level,
Well,
Right.
and that depends whether or not they're ER nurse or are they a floor nurse.
but I think that even goes a
They
step
have a
further than
better
that.
lobby. They have a
Well, not
better
just that.
lobby.
I mean, if you go all the way to the federal government, the big, EMS is regulated by DOT. It's not considered an essential service. So we're not under HHS, we're under DOT. And so, I mean, it stems, I'm not saying that's the root of all evil, but
No, but when you have EMT basics working 48-hour shifts with no sleep,
yeah,
how do you get away with that?
yeah. I mean, I think it's reimbursement structures certainly need to be reevaluated. Yeah, no, I mean, I have a hard time looking at private ambulance companies, and I have this problem with the owners of the ambulance companies are doing just fine, and
Yep.
their medics are making significantly less. Now I know that through all of that there are reimbursement structures, both at the federal, state level, local, and obviously insurance rates are garbage for especially field transportation. There is a way to increase pay for medics and EMTs across the board. How do we do that sustainably? That takes a lot of lobbying power and a lot more brain power than I got. I don't have that's one of the beauties of the movie is we're happy to call out some of the major, I think some of the major significant issues, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that I got the answer to all of it because I don't.
Oh
I
no.
think Vic, to your thing is absolutely number one, pay us more. That's
I
if I have to work two jobs just to pay rent, not even own a house, but to just pay rent, God forbid I want to raise a family, you're
Yeah.
not doing that on a basic salary at all. It's not happening.
I love that you had the ticker at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We, we loved, and all of those numbers, by the way, are all pegged to the Bureau of Label Statistics. We didn't make any of those up. The only one is the custodian.
Yeah,
We
that's what
gave
I
him
figured. I was fixing to say he doesn't make $5 grand more than that medic.
we gave him he got a raise because he's the head custodian. So he
Yeah.
got we had to give him a raise to make the joke land. But everybody else, all of those numbers are pegged to Bureau of Labor Statistics.
How often do you get when somebody recognizes you're a paramedic that they thank you for your service?
Not often,
Yep.
and I don't expect that either. Like the majority of the people, to be fair, when if you're a what I would call a real call, if you're really in crisis, like you got a broken femur or you're in severe respiratory arrest, I don't expect you to remember me because you're dealing with your own stuff.
Right.
Yep.
And I never, at least I would hope most people would back me on that. That I wouldn't walk around thinking that you should be thanking me for being alive, kind of thing.
Wow.
One of the coolest things that did happen was I ran a call on when I was at the county. That was a student's parent, and that student and I were in the same class, and I didn't know this at the time. We were working. It was a fairly significant respiratory distress. I do remember that. And then, a couple of weeks go by, and this guy's giving me the eye. And I don't know who this guy is. Again, Carolina's big school,
Yeah.
and we're in like a 101 class, and this guy's just eyeballing me. I'm going, what is going on? And
Do I owe him money?
yeah, exactly. I was like, what? Can I help you? Like, you seem to be really like looking at me. And he goes, did you work? Do you work on the ambulance? I said, yeah, I do. And I said, why? He goes, do you remember? Were you at this address or whatever? And I think so. I was like, because the flip side also, let me be clear. The flip side, I don't know about you, but for me, if I treat you like you're gone out of my head, like I
Yeah,
don't
no
remember
doubt.
you,
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
unless it's something horrific or like skulls, like I intentionally do my best to not remember you. He brought this question up, and I remember going, I don't remember the address. Like, tell me a little bit more. It was that happened. I said, oh yeah, I was on that call. Yeah, that was me. And this guy, again, I don't know this person. We're
Right.
just students at the university. I'm not in uniform. I'm in t-shirts and look like a college student. And he just starts crying. And he was just like, my dad was in ICU for like 4 days and it was really touch and go. He survived up to that point. Really wanted to say your thank you. And this, another adult man is like crying in front of me. And I was
We
expecting to
aren't
just,
we aren't built
yeah,
for that.
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, that always stuck with me because it was kind of, I mean, number one, it was an honor to be able to be in that position. But number two,
Yeah.
it's like, I was planning on going to lunch. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that one always did touch me a little bit.
What you did with this movie is really a service to all paramedics,
Absolutely.
And so I guess we
Yeah.
thank you again for your service.
Thank
I
you
appreciate that.
for giving us a voice.
Yeah.
That's right.
That was one of the big motivations. And I'm glad it came through. Like I tell everybody this on every interview. I make it a point to say this: if you're still doing the job, thank you for what you do. It
Yeah.
matters. I don't care what anybody else says. I know you're not going to hear it enough. I don't care if you don't hear from anybody else today. You're going to hear from me. Thank you for what you do. It's incredibly important, and I hope you keep with it for as long as you're healthy and able to do that. And
Amen.
I also follow it up with, if you got those spicy thoughts, because I know we're on YouTube,
Yep.
get help and get help now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the day of remembrance for those was just this week. I put a post up on Facebook about that too. Because self-deletes do happen in our field, and there's no reason for that to happen in these days. There are groups out there that are willing to listen to you. Hell, get with us. We'll put you on the podcast. I call this group therapy. It is, I mean, it's a bunch of us old timers reliving calls from back in the day, and we welcome everybody here. I tell you what, Patrick, I hope you'll come back on and be with us again in the
You
future.
should, Patrick. That was fun.
Not
I'd love
not
to.
not as Patrick the writer. We've got this interview
Right.
out of the way. We want you to come on, be a guest, drink beer with us, and tell us some of the stuff that didn't make the movie.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'd be happy.
You need to meet Mike Pontius, his
Oh,
his
yeah.
Oh
cohort.
yeah.
Yeah.
My normal sidekick, Mike. You need to meet him. We get a little bit more rambunctious. I was super stoked that you were going to be on, and I appreciate you coming on. Well, look, folks, I appreciate y'all staying this long into the video. It was an awesome video. I know why y'all stayed. It was very riveting. Please consider mashing that like, and subscribe, and notify, and that helps us more than you know. Also, I did a little something since the last episode that I've never talked about. And in the description of this video, Gettin 10-8 Podcast now has a merch store. So in the link, I will have the link in the description of you can go to the merch store, and there are some shirts for fire, EMS, and police department. Check out what we got, and as I'm thinking of funny shirts designs to put in there, I'm adding too. So it's a growing thing. Y'all check it out. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on. Scott,
Let's
Vic,
see the movie.
it was an awesome movie. In fact, we're going to go out watching the trailer. Come back and see us again next week, folks. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Patrick.
Medic 42, respond emergent to psychiatric patient.
$20 said he's gonna be butt ass naked.
Well, there you have it. It's a draw. Shirt, no pants. That's like Winnie the Pooh. Mike, you gonna let me drive today?
No. I will. You healed.
I should mention at this point that you're all going to die. Heart attack, car accident, fork in the toaster, or peanut allergy.
Drowning's the worst way to go.
Best way to die?
Decapitation. You guys ever see anyone choke to death?
All we want to do is save your life. Some of you don't make it easy.
Get out of my house! Gun! I didn't know you could run that fast.
Most people on this job can't last a year. They can't hack it.
Take my dollar, you mother...
You are senior, you get the student.
No.
Is there another paramedic I should put them with? Somebody better than you?
Nobody's better than me.
Let's hit it.
Why are you here?
Because I want to save lives. You have people's lives in your hands. How can you not care?
I'm burning out. The whole system is broken. I need the hell out of EMS. I'm quitting. That's it. I'm out of here.
Please don't go out like this.
You gonna miss me?
We're just co-workers, man. You act like I'm like your best friend. Damn it, I'm his best friend. Can you feel the...
I got into EMS because I really wanted to help people.
Officers, we've got this totally under control.
But this is a job.
Oh, come on! Come on!
You clock in, you clock out.
I don't think you really believe that.
Can you feel the...
I'm the President of the United States!
Mr. President, let's take a service, man. We're here to evacuate you and take you to the White House.
What about the First Lady and the Vice President?
We're gonna send a second chopper.
She's been having a little trouble breathing lately.
Define lately.